Welcome to the Free Library of Philadelphia. My name is Cynthia Schemmer, and I'm honored to introduce our guests tonight. James Patterson holds the Guinness World Record for the most #1 New York Times bestsellers. His books have sold more than 375 million copies worldwide, each one continuing to showcase his exquisite storytelling. His latest novel, Unsolved, is the long-awaited follow-up to 2013's Invisible and follows FBI agent Emmy Dockery, who is struggling to find the pattern in a series of seemingly unrelated murders. In 2015, Patterson created his children's book imprint, Jimmy Patterson, to encourage lifelong reading habits. He has donated over 3 million books to students and soldiers and funds more than 400 James Patterson teacher education scholarships. He is also the recipient of an Edgar Award and 6 Emmy Awards. In 2015, he received the Literarian Award from the National Book Foundation, which cited him as a passionate companion to make books and reading a national priority. Hailed by the New York Post as the queen of summer beach reads, Elin Hilderbrand has written over 20 romance novels set on and around Nantucket Island, where she has lived for 25 years. Her first historical novel, Summer of '69, will be released this month and follows 4 siblings through a pivotal era in our country's history. What Happens in Paradise, the follow-up to our national bestseller, Winter in Paradise, will be published in October. Hildebrand is a graduate of the Johns Hopkins University and the Iowa Writers Workshop. She has also created the hashtag and website Mama Strong to share the stories of cancer survivors. And now please give a warm welcome to James Patterson and Elin Hilderbrand.
Hi, do I have any fans? Just seriously, honestly, I have 5 fans. I love you. Oh my God. I'm so happy. Is that you, Eileen? Yes. Oh wait, where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay, so we're just gonna make this night all about me. No, I'm only kidding. Eileen is a special fan, and she comes to my bucket list weekend. I have a little bucket list weekend on Nantucket, and she comes, and it's so fun to see you. I grew up not too far from here in Collegeville, Pennsylvania. So anybody from Collegeville? But we are here tonight to celebrate a conversation with one of the most interesting men in the world.
I'm from Philly, too. Yeah, I love it. Love those Phillies. Love those
one of the
Flyers.
Most interesting men.
Love those other
Sixers.
teams. Sixers. Yeah.
And the most important,
Eagles.
The Philadelphia Eagles. So we are here to celebrate Unsolved, which publishes today, and the Guinness Book of World Record owning most sold.
I thought we were going to talk about no numbers. We're not
books.
doing the numbers, right?
No, we're not doing any
this
numbers.
This is my first novel.
But he is the Guinness Book of World Records best-selling author, James Patterson. Yay.
All right, okay.
Okay, so I'm going to start, I think we should start with story of origin. So can you tell us how you got your first book published?
First, I don't even remember that far back. Well, no, the first Thomas Berriman number was turned down by 31 publishers. It then won an Edgar as best first novel. So if you get turned down, look at that as you've done something really good, and they've screwed up. Some of the editors still send me books to send for blurbs and stuff, which I find hilarious. Most of them are dead, but
Okay,
yeah.
So you get your first novel published, and
yeah.
You win the Edgar, and then what happens? How do you become James Patterson?
I was always James Patterson.
Yeah.
I just was poor.
Yeah.
I've been, in my life, I grew up in a little town in upstate New York. I've been poor, and then I was middle class, and then I was poor again, and then I was middle class again, and now I'm rich. And on balance, I prefer being rich.
Yes.
But I'm really happy that I went through the other stages, because I think it's made me a better person, a better father, a better husband, and a better writer too. Because I know what it's like. I've been there.
Yes, as have I. So can we hit?
You were always rich.
I was not. Always rich.
Oh, okay.
I tell a great story about, I was in fact dirt poor, and I too prefer. I prefer having a little bit of money. It's a little bit easier.
A little bit of money.
It's a little bit easier to negotiate your way around. But I think for writers, Do we have any aspiring writers in the audience?
Do we
always
have
so
anybody
curious.
who's not an aspiring writer in the audience?
Okay.
Which was that?
People,
I confused it, right?
People always ask, for aspiring writers, like, how do you make it happen? And my answer is always, you have to keep at it, right?
Yeah, you got to write.
You
have
to write.
No book, no, you can't get a contract, no book. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So you have to keep.
What a great letter, but there's no book. Oh, wow.
Right, exactly. So you have to keep writing. You have to keep at it. So during the course of your career, like, where are the high points? Like, where are the game changers? Do you remember? Like, where are the game changers?
Winning the Edgar was great. It was actually kind of fun or interesting because I had left Little Brown, although I came back. The first book was with Little Brown. And the woman from the Edgars, I was working in New York, and I get this call, and she says, like, a week from now at the Commodore Hotel, the Edgars, and you have to come because you've been nominated for Best First Novel. And I don't remember what was going on, but I said, I can't come. I don't know what I was supposed to do, but I said I couldn't come. She said, no, you have to come. I said, no. She said, you have to come, you won. And I said, oh, okay, I'm going to figure out a way to come. But the weird thing was, I'm in the audience, and she's told me I've won. I brought my parents, because I'm 26 years old. And I still have my mommy and daddy around. And I kept thinking, and I was thinking, like, normally you don't know. You're out there, and you're one of 5 people, and you're like, I hope I won. And then you're going to make that fake speech. Oh, like, I'm so happy. But then I was going, I wonder if she lied to me.
Right.
Just to get me to come, So I'm out there and I'm still paranoid.
Okay, so you win the Edgar.
Yeah.
And
Big
then,
moment.
Okay, there must have been other milestones. So
There were none.
Alex Cross shows up.
I tell you a story though. I mean,
Okay.
this is a milestone. So I write this book, Along Came a Spider, and
Right.
I had not had any hits till then. Yeah. And I pick up the New York, and Hildebrand didn't contact me or anything. I pick up the New York Times Book Review, and it's like number 6. I'm like, gee, what the hell is this? This has to be a mistake or something. So I go to the local bookstore, and what we'll do at bookstores, we'll go in and we'll count the books. We'll go, so I went in, and there used to be 12, and now there's 8. So maybe this book actually is selling, And then the other thing is, like, and this still happens, like if I'm in an airport or something and somebody picks up my book, I'm watching them. Seriously. I don't know if Ellen does this, but if they put the book down, it really hurts me. It hurts my feelings. And I'm serious, if they buy it, I'm like, I float for the rest of the day. So anyway, I'm in this store, and I see that the pile is down. And while I'm there, this woman picks up the book, and she's reading the flaps and, blah, 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 blah. And she puts it under her arm, and she walks down the aisle. And I'm like, this is the best thing ever. She gets halfway down the aisle, she slides it into her pocketbook. She stole it. I couldn't believe it. It's a true story. They're kind of highlights, but, And then, so early on, this is, when you grow, and so I go to a sort of a signing, but it's not an official signing. So I just show up at this bookstore in New York, and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Patterson, this is so great. We love your books." And they're slapping low fives and high fives. They say, "We got hundreds of the books in the back for you to sign." This is a true story. I get to the back, they got all these books laid out, Richard North Patterson novels. So I signed them. Okay. Highlights, lowlights, whatever.
That is so funny.
The Pulitzer, that was the Nobel Prize, that was that was a big highlight. I do have this nightmare dream that I go to I've been nominated, and they call me over to Sweden, in Stockholm or wherever the hell it is. And I get to the steps, I really have this dream, and that they're there to meet me. And they go, "What, are you kidding? We didn't. This is a joke. We thought you'd know it was a joke if we told you were going to get it. And we're giving it to Bob Dylan.
We're giving it to Bob Dylan. So I will piggyback on that, because I do have the greatest story of all time about being misidentified. So I spoke at the Post and Courier luncheon in Charleston, South Carolina, and I had an old woman, and she was walking up to me, and she gave me a copy of Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand. And I said, "Oh, ma'am, I'm so sorry. This isn't my book. This is Unbroken by Laura Hillenbrand. I'm Elin Hilderbrand." And she was sort of confused, and I signed it anyway. And at this particular luncheon, I was sitting next.
You have to go along.
You have to go along.
Whatever it is, yeah.
At this particular luncheon, I was seated next to Leslie Stahl, and I was so embarrassed. I'm like, okay, Leslie Stahl has now seen that I'm not Laura Hillenbrand, and it was very mortifying. Anyway, the woman walks away, and Leslie Stahl turns to me and she goes, "That's okay. Everyone thinks I'm Diane Sawyer."
You know, I was on an airplane just a couple of months ago, and I'm walking down the aisle, and this woman, years ago, I was on Castle, a TV show, a couple of times, yeah. So I'm walking down the aisle, and this woman is pointing at me. She says, "I know you. I know you." So I stop. "Hi, how are you?" And she says, "You played Patterson on Castle." Yeah, so I'm going to play Patterson tonight, too. Okay, yeah.
Very, very good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, because I know people are interested. Well, I mean, more highlights. So, like, when your first book is turned.
Here's a low light for you.
Okay.
So I write this book called Virgin. I don't know what it was called at the time.
It was called Virgin?
Yeah, it was a horror story. Okay. Whatever. It's kind of cool. And this isn't that Little Brown. And I'm waiting. And so they give it to some junior editor to edit. And it comes back. And it was, when I gave it to him, it was like 450 pages. And I get this manuscript, and this junior editor has turned it to 230 pages. I'm like, and it's like Saturday, and I'm getting this, and I'm like, can you imagine? You get no one to call and say, "How could you do this?" So there was a low light. Yeah.
That's right.
That was awful.
That's right.
Yeah. The highlights are better, I think.
The highlights are better. So I wanted to ask about the first time one of your novels was turned into either television or movies. Like, what was that like?
All low lights.
You feel like those are low lights?
Yeah. If I had I would never write a Hollywood novel, but if I did, the first line, "Hello, I lied."
Okay.
It's a very, I don't like out there. Well, we have a lot of things going on. I have a little bit more sway now. Not a lot, but a little bit. They'll listen. They ignore it, but they listen. They politely. They didn't used to listen. Let's see. When I did Along Came a Spider, I went out. Paramount invited me out to the press junket, and they said, "Well, we better let Jim see the movie because the press they're going to ask what I think of the movie." So I'm watching the movie from this book that I wrote, and I watched the first scene and I go, "All right, well, that wasn't in the book." And I watched the second scene, I go, "Oh, that wasn't in the book either." And in the second scene, Alex Cross is building this ship in a bottle. I'm going, that doesn't seem that cinematic to me, And this woman comes in, and she basically says, "Enough with the ships in a bottle. Go on out there and get shot at or something, because that's what you're supposed to do." And I don't know who the hell the woman is, She never comes back. So I see Morgan Freeman a little later in the spread chunk. I go, "Morgan, who is the woman in the second scene in the movie?" He said, "Oh, that's Alex Cross's sister." I said, "Oh, I didn't know Alex had a sister." So, yeah, it's like that, Hollywood.
Right. It's like that. Yeah. They are just taking liberties.
I'm with creative artists, and I'm out there one time, and they go, "Tom Cruise wants to meet you." So I'm like, "Great, stay in your hotel room, and we'll tell you when." So I'm like, "What?" All right, so I'm in my hotel room. Tom Cruise wants to meet me. Then they call up, and they go, "Okay, now, there's a car out in front, but don't tell them who you're going to see." Okay, fine. So I get in the car, it drives around LA, whatever, pulls up to this gate, and the driver goes, "Oh, this is Tom Cruise's house." But, yeah.
So you went to his house?
He was great. Yeah. He's not that little. He was like normal.
I heard he's pretty little.
Yeah. No, it was good.
And then did he?
And Siri, it was delightful. We stayed together for a couple hours. Siri was on his lap for the first half hour. She was very sweet.
Okay.
I don't know. Why does he keep marrying these big, tall women though? It's weird.
Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, she's 6 foot. She's big.
Yeah.
I'm going to meet her actually next week.
Oh,
So
you are?
We
Do you
might
want to talk
something.
about that? Can we talk about
I
that?
can't because I haven't met her yet.
Okay, so we don't know. So we can't
I
talk
just
about
have
that.
to make up stuff. All I know, she's tall. She has a high IQ. That's all I know.
And she has a high IQ. Okay, good. Are there any books, because you've written a lot of books.
Yeah.
I always feel like I've written a lot of books. My 23rd book is coming out in 2 weeks. I've written
23
essentially
is 23
nothing.
is a year for me.
That is correct. You've written 250 books. Are there books that you
Not
are...
250.
That's what it says.
Really?
Yeah.
Aaron, where's the Aaron, who did that? Who said 250?
I think there are 250 books.
No, really? Okay, all right, whatever.
Yes,
I'll take your
let's
word
say
for
yes.
it. What do I know? I don't think
That
so.
yes.
That's too much.
Are there any that are...
240 maybe.
Okay. That particularly stand out for you as being like favorites?
No, it's just
Seriously?
flatline. Yeah, no. I love I loved some of the characters. I love Alex. I love the
Alex.
Women's Murder Club.
Yeah.
Maximum
Yes.
Ride.
Yes. We have some
Characters.
Yes. Characters.
Black Book I like.
Yep,
I
but
thought
not-
that one turned out well.
But not
Some not as much.
particular books.
Yeah, well, Black Book.
Yeah.
Along Came a Spider because it was early. Suzanne's
early.
Diary for Nicholas.
Suzanne's Diary. Who loves Suzanne's Diary? Let's have some. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's my sister's favorite book.
Yeah, and
It's her favorite
I
book.
mean, you know what happens. Sometimes you want them all to turn out great, and sometimes, it didn't work as well as I thought it was going to work.
Yeah, exactly. I want to turn the conversation a little bit towards...
To yourself. Okay.
Not to me, no.
No. Blue
No?
Bistro. I loved that. That was the first one of yours I read.
The Blue Bistro. Yes. I will say that Jim did blurb the Blue Bistro, and
I tried to blurb, and they said, "What? Who's he?"
it was just out of my... I was over the moon. It did absolutely nothing. It sold 4,000 copies in hardback. It didn't help. But you did blurb it.
I did my best.
you did your best.
It probably did well in the library.
And it probably did well at the library.
Yeah.
But it was very exciting.
You ever check that? Like, if it didn't sell well, but 900 people have checked it out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the Blue Bistro probably of every one of my novels sold the least amount when it came out in hardback, and then 6 years after it came out, it did hit the New York Times bestseller list because
Yeah.
it rode
Well,
the
it's
wave of
great.
it rode the wave of a different book, and so that was very exciting. No, I wanted to turn.
You got to do like White Bistro, and then you bring it out again.
Oh,
Yeah.
the White Bistro. I had not thought of that.
No,
That's like a very interesting.
The kind
thought.
of marketing mind, huh? Ooh,
Yeah.
boy.
He's got it going on.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your philanthropic work. So
You want money?
no. I love my favorite thing is when famous people give money to something that has something to do with their area of expertise. So a lot of times I think you see actors and actresses and they pick clean water, and not that clean water isn't fabulous or inoculations aren't fabulous, but it means so much to me, sort of resonating when a famous person puts money into something that has something to do with their business. So you have really dedicated, in my knowledge, to two things. One is reading for literacy for kids across the country, and we're going to talk about that. And then the second is the independent bookstore thing. And each of them is very, very close to my heart. And so do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Well, look, my philosophy is you work hard. You want to do as much as you can possibly do. And obviously now, because I have a little bit of a reputation for giving away money, we have 450 scholarships for kids, in college we have some at Penn. For teachers, kids that want to be teachers, but I always try to do things where I think it's going to have a big effect. Like, for example, I'll get people and they'll come and they'll go, you know what we have to do? The way we're going to get kids reading is we have to go to parents who can't read very well, and that's how we're going to get them. And I go like, no. I mean, that's great, but we can't do it. We're not going to be able to do that. I mean, you could do it in your neighborhood, or you could do it at your local library, but generally, So the kind of thing I love, and right now the percentage of kids reading at grade level in Florida is 43%. The best in the country, don't too much, because the best in the country is Massachusetts. It's not Pennsylvania, and that's at 62%. Okay, so nobody is doing a very good job. University of Florida has been, for 5 years, working on a thing. They have it up into the mid-80s. So I got involved with the University of Florida. We went to the legislature last year. They gave us 10 districts. They don't have the results back until the middle of June. Met with the governor who, people worried about him a bit, but he seems like he's actually a pretty good guy. And he said, if you get numbers, you don't have to get 80s, but if you get good numbers, we're going to take this across Florida, and it will save, thousands and thousands of lives. And that's the kind of thing I love. So I don't know if this is going to work, but if it works, the ceiling is really high. Kids win, teachers win, state wins, legislature wins, everybody wins. So that's the kind of project I love, where it can really do a lot of good.
Exactly. And you've said that there is the quote is something about everybody is a reader if they have the correct book.
Yeah, within
there is
reason.
no such
Certainly
thing
for
as a
kids.
non-reader. We're kind of preaching to the choir here because I'm presuming everyone is sitting here because you guys read. But I do believe that, especially with children.
Well, the most important, kids are the key. Well, and the reality of it is there are millions of kids in this country who have never read a book that they love. Mm-hmm. Zero, none. And I have an imprint at Hildebrand, a kids imprint. I actually do a lot of kids books. And our mission statement for the kids' books is when a kid finishes a Jimmy book, that's the name of the imprint, the kid will say, give me another book, as opposed to, I don't like to read. And that's crucial. And I wish that gatekeepers would get it into their heads that that's the crucial thing. They must have some books that they go, I love that. J.K. Rowling saved thousands and thousands of lives because if you've read even one of those books, then you're a competent reader, and that means you can get through school. If you're not a competent reader, it's really, really hard to get through school.
Absolutely.
So we must, and that's what I love about this Florida thing, if we pull it off. It'll mean that 80% of the kids in Florida will be competent readers, and that's going to be tremendous if we can pull it, if we can make it happen.
I completely agree. I feel like we have to have a round of applause for that. That is so amazing.
Yay! And if it works, one of the nice things with President Clinton, he said, I will break down doors in Arkansas. I went to Vanderbilt, so we have connections in Tennessee. So we can spread this thing if it works.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. And let's segue quickly over to, I do want to get back to President Clinton. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Oh, must we?
We must, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But let's talk about independent, one of my favorite.
So tempted to,
I know.
I really want to,
I know. Independent.
Because then we
book-
have to do the silent Charlie Chaplin thing. Yeah.
Your love for independent bookstores, which I share for certain, and
You know what? I love them all now.
Yeah.
I was at Barnes & Noble today, their headquarters. I love Barnes & Noble now.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer, it's like, no, they all must survive. They all must survive. Borders, please bring them back. We're not going to get them back.
I know.
We need them all now. We really do.
I agree. So you're now on board.
And they're not in
with-
the business of putting people out of business anymore, like the, what was the thing with Tom Hanks and the movie, yeah. You got
You've
mail.
Got Mail.
Yeah. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
They don't do that anymore.
I agree. Anybody who's reading now, do you?
The indies are doing better now. In general.
I think they are.
Yeah.
I think they are. And the interesting thing is, at Little Brown, they tell me the ebooks are down, which is a phenomenon I don't understand. Do you understand that?
A little bit of it is that Amazon has moved on to supermarkets. No,
Sure.
They're doing, and everything else, banks and insurance, and there'll be the government soon, and all the newspapers. No, but they're not as involved, and they're certainly not involved in let's shut down every little store and every chain anymore. So that's good.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah, I agree.
And Bezos is busy with other stuff,
And
whatever.
he's got lots going on.
Yeah, he sure does.
Do you read?
I love it that she's going to give away all this money now.
Yes.
That's so cool, yeah.
She's giving away, I can't remember.
$34 billion or something. I
$34
don't know,
billion.
whatever. Yeah. I don't know how much she's going to give away, but it's one of those fake things where you've pledged, but you haven't really pledged.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that. I'm pledging everything
I know.
because it's just,
That'll be in the paper. Do you read paper books?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm almost always. That's
So
pretty
do
much
I.
what
I'll be
do,
interested.
yeah.
Let's just do a little audience participation. So raise your hand if you only read paper books. Okay, so not okay. All right, let's do it the opposite because that looked very scant, sort of. Raise your hand if you read electronically. Anything electronically. Okay. Audio. Oh, okay. Raise your hand if you listen to audiobooks. Oh, okay, wonderful. That's very exciting.
Okay. Yeah, audiobooks are coming on. It's all good. It's all good. Wherever you read,
Yeah.
reading is good. Yeah.
Reading is good, I agree.
And
Okay.
even listening is good too. I mean, and you do, I mean, one of the interesting things about ebooks is that'll probably change over time. But right now, you don't retain people generally don't retain as much.
When you're listening.
No, when you're reading ebooks.
When you're
believe it or
reading.
not.
Okay, that's
I think
very-
we're just not quite as familiar with it, and it's just a little distracting for us.
Okay. Okay, I have a strange question
They've all been strange
off
so
the
far.
chart question.
Which is good.
Can you tell me, does fan mail ever reach your house?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Can you
no.
give me a good
No, I'll
like,
give you
letter?
horror stories. I
Yes.
mean, every day somebody sends a manuscript.
Oh.
Stop already. I can't do this. I mean, no, I mean, it's like a doctor. Here, do you want to look at my x-rays? It's only going to take you, or a lawyer. Here, just go through these papers. It'll only take you like 3 or 4 hours. I mean, it's just terrible because you get the books and people have spent a lot of time, or it's their war stories or whatever. And this is not good because, like, one, I don't have the time. Two, if I read it and then if I don't like it, I have to say I don't like your book. Or if I do like it a little bit and then I say I like it, and then they want your suggestions and then they send it back to you again. After, it's like, no, you can't do this because it's like 5-6 hours.
Yeah.
And, and you just don't want to say, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
Like,
I know. I had a
you know,
woman, a little bit, this is what made me think of it, is I had a woman, every once in a while a letter will get to my actual house, which I find so strange and also disturbing. But,
Yeah, when they hand deliver it.
well, I mean, it comes in the mail.
They're not. Hi, are you home? Did you write that breaking thing? How about the sea biscuit? You wrote the sea biscuit, right?
This woman. So the one woman was actually, the letter was totally great, and she said that she's a public defender and she works in a court that's 2 hours from her house, so she has a 2-hour commute. So she bought I don't know what
she's in
on
jail.
audio, and she listens
You get
to
them
it
from
during her
prison
commute.
people?
And I thought that was like such a great letter, like that basically saved her. Not saved her life, but that she drives in the snow and that what
Okay.
keeps her focused is listening to the book on audio, and it was a number of years ago, so I hadn't even realized that audio was a thing.
No, but I get people who say, I read your book while driving. Not audio. No, really. I mean, there was some accident. The cop actually filmed the thing. And he goes up to this woman, and she gets out of the car, and she's got the book in her hand. She says, I'm sorry, I was reading.
Okay. And then I had a woman write to me saying
I must be making this stuff
she
up.
did not like the sex in my books. The sex was
I mean,
very,
the quality
very,
of it, or just,
I think
I don't know.
the fact that there was sex was
okay,
very
all right.
offensive, and she was never ever going to pick up another book as long as she lived. And normally I would have thrown the
Just
book away.
yours or anybody's?
I think it was I can't
Okay,
even
all right,
remember.
okay.
Like, my grandmother is 99 years old, right? She's still alive. And so I always say as soon as she's dead, like the sex is going to go ratcheting up, because I keep it very metered, because I'm like aware that not only her, but the people in her retirement community are all reading this book. And so I like always sort of keep it, but this woman was very offended by the sex in my books, and I'm thinking there's barely any. But I wrote back and I said, this is how we all got here. This is how you got here.
But we don't talk about it.
But we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And
we don't
she
use
wrote
that
a
word.
nice letter back saying, thank you so much for responding. I didn't expect
I'm still
that.
not going to read your book. But,
Yeah.
Yeah. And heaven forbid that you use bad language.
I know. Like, we don't live in the world. But, okay, so let's talk a little bit about last year. You had The President is Missing come out, and you wrote a book with President Clinton, which was so unusual, I think, and so cool. One of the things that happens now in music is the rappers, they all have something called featuring so-and-so. So nobody is alone, really, when they're recording anymore. They have featuring. So this was sort of a nice partnership between you and the President of the United States, and I think probably for those people who were not here last year would like to hear what that was like.
It was great. It was, look, we're both from small towns, and we both have a certain humility about where we came from, and kind of down to earth. We enjoyed each other. We became very friendly. was saying inside that for my birthday, he sent me a humidor. And he knows I don't smoke. So it was a presidential seal and a whole ball of wax. So I immediately sent him a note, and I said, listen, as a cigar aficionado, what should I put in the humidor, chocolate cigars or bubble gum? And he wrote right back, and he said, oh, definitely bubble gum, because when you get long in the tooth like we are, the gums need that action. So, yeah, like that.
That's right.
But it was great. It was, I mean, he reads a lot of mysteries.
Okay.
He was very involved. Anything that's in there, I wouldn't say that it's strict realism, but if it happens in the book, if it happened in real life, it would happen something like that. Whatever the scene is in the book. Okay. So it was great. It was it was a great honor, and Sue and I went out to dinner with he and Hillary half a dozen times, which was great. She's it's really interesting, in the context of 4 people, she's so down to earth and funny and warm, and and I just thought about, as somebody that communicates, man, I mean, whoever was handling her made a huge mistake, because they did not get who she is onto television. And that's horrifying. Because if people, if they saw what we would see sitting with her, they'd go, we love her, she's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
As opposed to, she's not good, she was not good on television.
Okay, so Unsolved comes out today.
Oh, yeah, right.
Right,
Yeah.
we're talking about that.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else big on the horizon?
Well, there's a lot of cool, I mean, we did a book, a kid's book, Max Einstein. I don't know if you all have.
Yeah.
That's, the Einstein estate came to, actually came to Scholastic, Disney, and my little imprint, and they said, let's do a shootout, and I went, all right, whatever. But Scholastic and Disney were stupid because they didn't bring a writer to the shootout, and I brought myself. So we won. Because I sort of said, well, I think the story would go something like this, and they couldn't do that because they didn't have a writer. But they're very smart, obviously, and they said, look, we want to introduce Einstein to kids all around the world and his theories, but you have to make it entertaining. I said, all right, so all you have to do is Einstein and his theories and make it entertaining for children. No problem, yeah. But it really was a great honor, and it is a very entertaining book, and don't be scared off, oh, my kids will never read about Einstein. Yeah, they will. They will read about this little, and they gave us the name Max Einstein. I said, this isn't important in certain places, but I want Max to be a girl, because in a lot of places, it's really important that girls be encouraged to go into science and math and da-da-da-da. Not everywhere, but in a lot of places, it still is important. And then because of the job we did with that, Muhammad Ali's estate just came to us, and they said, we want to do kid books about when he was Cassius Clay in Louisville. When he was a kid, and he was dyslexic, but he was really, I mean, he was a very, you could tell how bright he is as he got older, but as a kid, he was so focused on what he wanted to do. He was very funny. He was very charismatic. His views, even as 8, 9, 10 years old, on race relations were amazing. He'd always be talking to his mother about, like, why in the supermarkets do they have all this, white cake white powder, white soap, whatever, and that, like, devil's food cake. Why are we the devil? Why, you know what I mean? But just all these, and he's just an interesting character. And I just last week met with Lonnie, his widow, and she was great. She's so excited about this thing, and I'm actually going to co-write it with Kwame Alexander. So that's going to be very cool,
That's
and
awesome.
It's going to be a combination of prose and poetry. So.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
we
the
love
poetry
that.
really makes sense because it's
It's Cassius Clay.
Hi, Mr. Patterson. I
Hey.
read your last book, The First Lady, which I could
Don't
not
say
put
anything
down.
bad.
I loved
Anybody
it.
that wants to do questions, don't do any bad stuff.
I loved it. Where did you get the idea from about writing The First Lady? Was it from The President is Missing, or was it something that you was
No,
already
the
working
weird
on?
thing about the First Lady was I had, with Brendan Dubrow, I had written that before The President is Missing, but because I knew that there were some similarities, I held off to publish. Here's the great thing about that book. So here's Brendan Dubois, and when I did the little 150 pages, I needed a lot of co-writers. And one of the things I did was, because I'm just like, okay, where do I find writers? And I went and I got up like the last 8 editions of Great American Mystery Stories. And I would just read through these things and go, this guy, this woman, this, whatever. I just liked their writing style. And I said, this will work well. And this one guy, Brendan Dubois, at any rate, so he's out there in New Hampshire, and he's a really good writer, and he's published a bunch of novels that have never sold worth a damn, and a lot of short stories, but he's really, really good, So a few weeks ago, the First Lady is like number 3 on the bestseller list, and Cornwall's is like number 2, but I got the list, so he didn't know. So I call up and got his wife on the phone, and I've talked to her many times now, and I told her that the 2 books on the bestseller, and she started crying.
Aww.
And she said that for 25 years it's been his dream to be on the bestseller list, so here it is. It's great.
I used to read your books.
Oh, no, here we go.
No, actually, I
Yeah.
listen to them now.
Okay,
The
all right,
last
okay,
one
all
was
right.
The President is Missing. What I'd like to ask you is, how do you write a book with somebody else with pride of authorship and all of that?
All right, here's, in a way, that's a kind of a funky question. Here's TV series, okay? We have Instinct on with Alan Cumming. And what I loved doing there was putting a gay couple on CBS, honestly. I thought that was a really good, to bring in all these family, and get them comfortable with this gay couple. But when you go to the writer's room for a TV show, there's 10 writers in the room doing these 40-page stories, 10 of them, not like 2, whatever. When you're in advertising, which I was for a while, I've been clean for over 30 years now, you work with usually an art director and sometimes a producer too, and you just get used to collaborating. It's just collaborating. And so it isn't all that complicated. I mean, my own style it's a little different than that, but yeah, it's just collaboration. So it isn't, well, the thing with Clinton, there was no egos involved. I mean, we both have egos, but it never came out. My thing, I wrote a book with a woman from, Lisa Marklund from Sweden, and it's really interesting because when the book came out, I went over to Stockholm, and you do a book, as Aaron knows, you can't get anybody to review the damn thing, blah, 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 blah. In Sweden, we went over there were like 49 interviewers that came for newspaper stories from all over, because they write about books over there,
Oh.
And they all went, how could you get to, because they'd seen Volvo and, with the U.S., and how would Sweden and ever get together and not kill each other, and, and I said, we did 2 things. One, we had a lot of respect for one another's writing, and secondly, we listened. We genuinely listened, and that's the trick. As long as you listen and you're open, your mind is open, it works.
Alex Cross, right? I think is one of your greatest characters. I have read every book. How did you come up with such a character, so unique, or any major character, but specifically Alex?
I think a piece of it was when I was growing up, my grandparents owned a small restaurant up in Newburgh, New York. Cook was an African-American woman, and when I was a little kid, she was having problems with her husband, and just the way my family was, they said, well, move in with us. And when I was little, I spent a lot of time with her family, and they were smart and well-read and funny, and the food was great and the music was great. And I sort of never forgot that family, and that kind of got me into it. And also at that point in Hollywood, all the movies they made, every African-American had the boombox in the movies, and I said, this is bullshit. I mean, it's not true. It's just not the way people are. So I wanted to create a character who I thought was more representative. And interestingly, for the first 60 pages when I did it originally, Alex was a woman. And I said, I'm not comfortable doing that quite yet. One, doing an African-American and a woman, and I said, let me back off a little bit. So that's kind of how it started.
I read your books. I got print ones, but I read from the Library for the Blind. But I've been reading your books for years, and I love Alex Cross and Boxer, the lady. And anyway, to make a funny story, I said to my daughter, oh, I just love James Patterson. And she said, Mom, do you know he's white? I said, what are you talking about? Because you just described characters so well, and I just knew you were black.
So now we're not friends anymore? You know what? And that's a nice thing about Muhammad. He said any which way it goes, it's just stupid for us to be, the thing of it is, and we see so much now, because so many people are making money turning us against each other. The problem is not Republicans versus Democrats. The problem is not black versus white. The problem is not rich versus poor. The problem is assholes. And it's rich ones, poor ones, black ones, white ones, and it's just people that are they're just whatever. They're just not nice people. Mostly.
I have super serious question.
Yeah.
Did you tell on the lady that stole the book?
Oh. No, I couldn't. I'm not a squealer. I couldn't. Yeah, but it was a no. And I also didn't know whether it would count as a sale.
You were talking about how important it is to get books to kids.
Yeah.
They just announced something in Philadelphia that they're doing for grades 1 through 3. They gave them a book. It's theirs to keep. And then they let them pick 10 other books for the summer. And it's theirs. And
They're giving them 10 books, really?
they're giving them
Wow,
10,
great.
10 books for the summer, and they're theirs.
For all of the school system?
From
Really?
first to third
One,
grade.
1 through 4? That's spectacular. Great. God bless them. Whoever's paying for it, fabulous.
It's coming from a grant, but I'm not sure from where.
Yeah, that's a heck of a grant. That's wonderful. That's great. That's great. That'll work.
What was your inspiration in writing the women's murder club mystery? And you know how it's so.
Don't
so
do the
have,
two-parters, because I forget the first. We'll come back to the second part. Women's Murder Club. I grew up in a house full of women, mother, grandmother, 3 sisters, 2 female cats, and the buzz and purr is still in my head. So that's a piece of it. The other piece is I think women, people, this might be sexist, I think they're more collaborative. So the idea of an assistant district attorney, a cop, I don't know if they'd ever let the journalist in there, because the journalist would screw everything up. But I love that collaborative nature of that, and nobody, I don't think, well, maybe somebody had done it, but I wasn't aware of anybody who had done something like that. So I just love that collaboration. I thought that would be a cool thing to write about. I have a book coming out, I don't know when the hell it's coming out, called The Inn, and it's this inn up in New England, and there's an ex-FBI person, ex-Navy SEAL, ex-cop, ex-wife, whatever, and they're all in this inn, and they get pulled into a bad situation in that town with, but I just kind of like that idea of putting a bunch of people together that maybe shouldn't be together. Yeah. Oh, you had it part 2, yeah. Give her the mic for part 2. How many parts to the whole thing?
So
This
give
is
me it back.
like
I'm not
the
gonna
college
let it go.
boards or something,
No, so the other
And then
part,
if the boy walked the 10 miles, and yeah, okay.
so the other part was, so it's a series, right? So there's all these different books, and so when you write the first book, how do you know how many more are
Oh, I
gonna
had no
come?
idea. I had no idea. When I did the first Alice Cross book, I wasn't thinking of doing any more, and Little Brown said, we want to buy 2. So I said, oh, okay, I guess I'll write another one then, Actually, when we tried to get Denzel Washington, or not we, but Paramount did, and he said, I'll do the first one, but I won't do more, and that was kind of how they wound up going to Morgan. So here's a funny, I told that story already, never mind. Morgan Freeman's story, yeah, very nice man.
What is your thinking about the New Yorker magazine? Not only its factual articles, but also the novelistic kind of writings they have.
Oh, you mean kind of editorializing? Yeah, I not so much into the New Yorker. It bothers me that major newspapers kind of editorialize on the front page. You'll be reading a story, and the same thing happened. Look, when I'm growing up, or when, you know, we look like, you're probably younger than me, but, you know, but you watch the news and you assume that it was just the news, that somebody wasn't editorializing. Now we have, on a lot of these stations, they're editorializing, but it feels like the news, but it isn't really, so I'm not a big fan of that. I think the news, as much as they can, here's the facts, and then somebody says, "Now here's my point of view. Here's my opinion." Okay, fine. But I don't like mixing the two so much. I know that for whatever, I guess in journalism schools they're going, you can mix them all up now. But remember way back, you know, in Norman Mailer, Armies of the Night, and he was one of the early ones that sort of started doing that kind of thing. But you really like one of the, All the World's a Stage. Who's the Bryson? You know, he writes about Shakespeare. It's actually it's a smaller book, but he talks about all these, you know, biographies and stuff being written about Shakespeare. We know nothing about Shakespeare. I mean, like there's like one quote from him in one, other than the plays. We know nothing. We got like one possible image of him, maybe two, and he was quoted in some a court case. And yet here are all these biographies. What? They're like novels. They have to be novels because we don't know anything. Seriously, I mean, it's insane.
I'm an independent bookstore owner, and this is from my customers. You publish on Mondays. Why are you the only one?
I asked you that. You publish on Mondays.
Oh, why Mondays? Because we can get away with it, man. Yeah. That's kind of all it is, yeah. Okay, thank you.
We'll be out front.
Yeah. We'll be outside.